13 Clever Ways to Deal with Toxic People. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling emotionally drained, as if someone had just pulled the life out of you? I vividly remember sitting in a cozy cafe one sunny weekend afternoon, excited to catch up with an old friend. But just minutes into our talk, the mood shifted. Complaints, negativity, blame. It felt like a storm of emotions, and before long, all my positivity had vanished, leaving behind frustration, exhaustion, and a sense of helplessness. That day taught me something crucial. Often our biggest battles aren't with the external world, but within our own hearts and minds. It reminded me of a timeless piece of wisdom from the Stoics, an ancient school of philosophy, who believed that true strength isn't about controlling external circumstances. It's about mastering our inner emotions and responses. In today's world, interactions with negative or toxic people are inevitable. But what if there were practical, effective strategies inspired by Stoicism to help us stay grounded, compassionate, and resilient in these challenging situations? In this video, I'll share 13 powerful techniques based on Stoic wisdom that you can immediately use to face toxic people, not with anger or frustration, but with confidence, empathy, and emotional clarity. By mastering these tools, you'll turn difficult interactions into opportunities for personal growth and emotional strength. So, take a deep breath and join me on this journey to safeguard your emotional well-being. Let's begin. Number 1. Identifying and understanding the toxic threat. Take a moment to imagine this. You're standing guard at the gates of a majestic fortress. But this isn't just any fortress, it's your personal citadel. Within its walls lie your inner peace, your physical well-being, and your emotional safety. This is the stronghold of your true self, and it is your sacred duty to protect it. Now ask yourself, who or what have you been letting in? Have you been standing guard, or have the gates been left wide open? In our fast-paced, hyper-connected world, it's easy to overlook the subtle invasions that chip away at our sense of peace. We often focus on external threats, stress at work, financial pressures, societal expectations. But what about the people around us? What about the ones who smile to our face, but leave us feeling drained, anxious, or less than? These are the silent invaders. These are the toxic individuals who can, if unchecked, infiltrate our citadel and destabilize the very core of our well-being. Let's be clear. Toxic people exist in many forms, and they don't always come with warning labels. Some of them are overt and aggressive, while others operate with stealth, using charm, manipulation, or guilt to get their way. But regardless of how they present themselves, they all have one thing in common. They disrupt your internal balance and compromise your emotional health. To guard your citadel, the first weapon you must wield is awareness. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, external events, including the behaviors of toxic people, do not control your emotional state. You do. That's a powerful realization, because once you accept that, you begin to see that no one has power over your peace unless you give it to them. Now let's talk about what toxicity really looks like in action. Sometimes it shows up as constant criticism. Maybe it's a friend who never misses a chance to point out your flaws, or a coworker who masks sarcasm as helpful feedback. At first, you brush it off, but over time, you notice that you're second-guessing yourself. You feel smaller, less capable. That's not constructive feedback. That's erosion. Then there's manipulation. This one's a bit trickier, because it often comes disguised as care or affection. Picture a partner who says things like, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me," or a colleague who uses compliments to sway your decisions in their favor. Manipulators twist your emotions, not out of love or concern, but to control outcomes for their benefit. You may feel confused, guilty, even indebted, but make no mistake, that is not connection. That is control. And let's not forget negativity, the kind that seeps into conversations like a slow poison. This person complains constantly. Nothing is ever good enough. They always find something wrong, and if you spend too much time around them, you start to mirror their outlook. Their pessimism becomes contagious, clouding your ability to see possibility and hope. These people don't just rain on your parade. They convince you there was never a parade to begin with. There are also specific types of toxic personalities you need to be able to recognize. First, the narcissist. At first glance, they may appear confident, charismatic, even inspiring. But scratch beneath the surface, and you'll find someone who demands admiration, who takes without giving, and who ultimately leaves you emotionally exhausted. They build their identity through others, and if you don't feed their ego, they withdraw or retaliate. Next, the gossip. This person thrives on chaos. They bond by breaking others apart. Every conversation is laced with rumors and speculation. They might seem fun, like they always know what's happening, but the truth is, they spread discord. And if they're talking about others to you, make no mistake, they're talking about you to others. Then there's the energy vampire. These individuals aren't necessarily cruel or malicious. In fact, they often appear harmless or even kind. But every interaction with them drains you. They complain, they vent, they offload their burdens onto you without ever seeking solutions. And you leave the conversation feeling like your emotional tank is empty. They don't need fangs to suck the life out of you. They just need your time and attention. So, how do we protect ourselves? How do we stand guard at the gates of our citadel with clarity and strength? We develop what I call the Stoic Gaze, a calm, clear, and objective way of seeing the world and the people in it. This doesn't mean being cold or detached. It means being wise. It means observing people's patterns, not just their words. It means trusting your intuition when something feels off. It means saying no without guilt and walking away without explanation. You don't need to justify protecting your peace. This also involves building a mental map of potential threats. Think of it like battlefield strategy. Just as a Roman general would study his enemy's tactics before going to war, you must learn to identify the strategies toxic people use. And then you plan. You set boundaries. You create distance. You recalibrate your circle so that those who enter your citadel uplift and empower you, not tear you down. You're not powerless in this. You are not a victim of the moods or manipulations of others. You are the gatekeeper, the sentry, the architect of your emotional sanctuary. And every choice you make, every boundary you set, every person you let in or keep out, determines whether your citadel remains a place of peace or becomes a battlefield of chaos. Number 2, fortify your walls. Imagine for a moment that you are Marcus Aurelius, seated not upon a golden throne, but within the quiet chambers of your own mind, the true seat of power for any Stoic. The empire you rule is not just the lands of Rome, but the vast terrain of your thoughts, emotions, and inner peace. To rule such an empire with strength and stability, you need more than military force or political strategy. You need reason. You need self-control. And above all, you need the ability to protect the borders of your inner citadel, the fortress that houses your emotional well-being. The foundation of that citadel is built upon boundaries. Just as Rome's borders were clearly defined and fiercely defended, so too must you define what is and is not acceptable in your own emotional territory. Toxic people, those who bring manipulation, pessimism, or disrespect, cannot be allowed to trespass. Not because of vengeance, not because of ego, but because the emperor cannot rule effectively from a seat in chaos. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes not just relevant, but essential. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing truly within our control is ourselves, our thoughts, our decisions, our responses. And so, the first step in guarding your citadel is self-examination. What patterns in your life leave you depleted? Who brings you clarity and who clouds your sense of self? Perhaps you have a friend whose constant negativity drags your spirit down, or a colleague whose charm masks a deeper manipulation. Maybe it's a family member whose unsolicited advice crosses into intrusion. The Stoic way is not to react in rage or retreat in silence, but to stand firm with clarity and resolve. To say, not out of resentment, but out of principle, this is what I will no longer tolerate. Once these boundaries are known to you, the next step is giving them voice. Speak with the calm conviction of a philosopher emperor. Be firm, yet fair. Clear, yet composed. If someone's constant criticism wears on you, don't lash out with blame. Instead, say, I feel overwhelmed when I'm being criticized constantly, and I need more constructive support. These are I statements, the voice of accountability, not accusation. They don't spark defensiveness. They invite understanding. Be specific. Instead of vague declarations like, I need space, say, I'm not available for this conversation right now, but I'll reach out later this week when I have more energy. In doing so, you take control of your emotional resources, just as a wise ruler allocates troops and provisions, not impulsively, but with long-term strategy in mind. And always be assertive, not aggressive. Your tone matters. Speak with the gravity of someone who respects both themselves and others, even when they must say no. Stoicism does not mean suppression of emotion, but rather its mastery. Your goal is not to overpower, it is to clarify, to protect, and to lead. Understand this. Boundaries are not a single proclamation delivered once and never spoken again. They are a continual process. Just as Marcus Aurelius would not allow repeated invasions of Roman territory without response, you too must remain vigilant. If someone pushes past the line you've drawn, remind them, not with fury, but with unwavering calm, that the boundary exists. And if they continue to violate it, your next duty is clear. Reduce your interaction. Step back. Withdraw your emotional investment. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Some will say this is selfish. That's the voice of the undisciplined. In truth, establishing boundaries is an act of humility and courage. It is recognizing your finite energy and protecting it so you may serve the people, purposes, and passions that truly matter. Remember that envy, that ancient and corrosive vice, is often what drives toxic behavior. When you shield yourself from it, you are not rejecting others, you are preserving your dignity and peace. To walk the Stoic path is to recognize that emotional well-being is not a luxury, but a discipline. It requires vigilance, self-awareness, and the courage to say, this space within these walls is sacred. It is not for everyone. It is for truth, for virtue, for tranquility. You are not the subject of someone else's turmoil. You are the sovereign of your soul. And your citadel, well-built, well-guarded, and unshakable, will stand because you chose to lead it with wisdom. Number 3. Become uninteresting to the emotional barbarian. Picture yourself once again as the guardian of your inner citadel. The walls are high, the gates are reinforced, and within lies your most treasured asset, your peace. But now a new threat emerges, not an invading army, but a ferocious emotional barbarian. This is someone driven not by reason, but by relentless pessimism and a thirst for emotional upheaval. They don't just carry chaos, they are fueled by it. These individuals are the drama stirrers, the fire starters, the ones who provoke just to watch you burn. You know this type. They lash out with sarcasm, pick at your insecurities, and aim their words like daggers, all in an attempt to break your composure. What they want is simple, your emotional reaction, a flicker of anger, a spark of pain, a rise in your voice. To them, your fury is fuel. Your frustration is entertainment. And your peace? A direct threat to their control. So how do you stand strong? How do you meet the emotional barbarian at the gates without opening them? This is where Stoicism meets modern psychological defense in the form of the gray rock method, a technique that aligns beautifully with the ancient wisdom of the Stoics. Coined by therapist Paul Fredman, the gray rock method is exactly what it sounds like. You become, in essence, as dull and uninteresting as a gray rock. It's not about withdrawing completely from human interaction. It's about refusing to offer the emotional hooks that toxic people use to pull you into their chaos. When applied correctly, this method turns you into an unmovable surface, smooth, steady, neutral. It offers no grip for the emotional attacker to latch onto. And more importantly, it denies them the one thing they crave above all else, your emotional engagement. We can turn to the writings of Seneca for deeper wisdom on this. Seneca, a master of emotional restraint, reminds us that true happiness resides in enjoying the present without anxious dependence upon the future. What does this mean in the context of dealing with toxic people? It means we must stop reacting out of a need for validation or justice. We must learn to find peace in the moment, even when others are trying to pull us into their storm. Toxic individuals often behave like emotional predators. They use guilt, sarcasm, blame, and confusion as tools. But these tools only work if you hand them the keys to your emotional state. The gray rock method teaches you to stop giving them those keys. Here's how it works in practice. Let's say someone hurls an insult. Your ideas are always so unrealistic. Rather than defending yourself, just say, "That's your opinion." No tone, no challenge, no justification. When they push harder, you push nothing. You respond with facts, not feelings. Short sentences, neutral tone, no emotional feedback. What you're doing is disarming them without ever lifting a weapon. They expect fire, and you give them stone. They want conflict, and you offer silence. Over time, they lose interest. You become, quite literally, boring to their chaos. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. In the beginning, many toxic people will escalate. They'll try harder to get a reaction. They'll test your boundaries. They'll twist your calm into accusations of being cold, heartless, or unresponsive. Do not waver. Do not flinch. The Stoics didn't teach us to avoid discomfort, they taught us to master it. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." The gray rock method is a modern embodiment of that principle. It's important to recognize that this approach doesn't mean you become emotionless. Quite the opposite. It allows you to redirect your emotional energy toward what truly matters. It teaches you to be selective in your responses, to preserve your emotional resources for people and moments that deserve them. You are not a victim of someone else's emotional turbulence. You are the still water beneath the storm. You are the stone at the center of the whirlwind. When you adopt the gray rock method, you are not avoiding conflict, you are mastering it. You are saying, with quiet strength, that your inner citadel is not open to those who come only to conquer. And while the world may never stop producing emotional barbarians, you can stop letting them inside. The gate remains locked, the stone remains still, and your peace, hard-earned and well-defended, remains yours. Number 4. The broken record technique. Imagine standing face to face with someone who refuses to take no for an answer. They shift tactics, twist words, flatter, guilt trip, explode, then retreat, only to try again. It's not an argument anymore, it's a siege. Slowly, subtly, they're trying to wear you down. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you've felt that slow erosion of your will, the frustration of saying no, only to be met with pressure, manipulation, or emotional traps that make you question your own boundaries. That kind of relentless, emotional maneuvering is exhausting. It's like trying to hold your ground in a storm that just won't stop. But here's the truth. You don't have to weather that storm defenseless. In the tradition of Stoic wisdom, the kind embraced by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, we find strategies for holding firm with grace. One of the most elegant and underrated of these is what we now call the broken record technique. At its core, this method is exactly what it sounds like. You calmly, clearly, and confidently repeat your stance like a broken record. Not with anger, not with rising emotion, but with the steady cadence of someone who knows what they stand for and will not be moved. Over and over, you return to your position. It's simple, but within that simplicity lies an incredible power. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only good." And this technique is an act of freedom in its purest form. The freedom to define your limits, the freedom to say no, the freedom to live aligned with your values without having to justify them to anyone who tries to bend them for their own benefit. That is the kind of strength Stoicism asks of us, not dramatic displays, but quiet, reasoned resolve. The reason the broken record technique works is because it disrupts manipulation at its root. Manipulators thrive on instability. They want to provoke, distract, and shift the emotional tone until you're too disoriented to remember what you were defending in the first place. But when you stand firm, when your response doesn't change, when you don't take the bait, the power dynamics shift. Suddenly, it's not you who's reactive. It's them. And that's when they begin to falter. Let's say someone pressures you into working late, again. You've already said no. They start flattering you. No one else can do it like you. You calmly say, "I understand, but I won't be available tonight." They shift to guilt. You know the team is counting on you. You respond again, "I've made my decision. I won't be available." They try frustration. "You're being difficult." Still you repeat, "I'm not available." You see what's happening? You've become the rock. The wave crashes again and again, charm, guilt, pressure, anger, but you do not move. That's not confrontation. That's clarity. The Stoics didn't believe in battling emotion with emotion. They believed in mastery of the self, of the moment, of the message. The broken record technique embodies that mastery. It allows you to separate yourself from the heat of manipulation and operate from a place of grounded principle. You stop being the target and become the anchor. The conversation returns again and again to the line you've drawn, not because you shout, not because you argue, but because you stand your ground. This isn't about winning arguments. It's about preserving your integrity. You don't have to outwit manipulation. You don't have to match emotion with emotion. You just have to stay in the pocket of your truth. Like Marcus Aurelius reflecting in his Meditations, your role is not to control others, but to control your own mind, to act with virtue and let others do as they will. When you practice this technique, you begin to experience something remarkable. You stop fearing confrontation. You stop doubting yourself when challenged. You begin to trust that your boundary, clearly stated, calmly repeated, is more than enough. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it 12 different ways. You don't have to raise your voice or feel guilty for holding the line. There will always be people who try to push, prod, and manipulate their way past your defenses. That's the nature of the world. But you have the tools of the Stoics. You have reason. You have self-control. And you have the power to repeat your truth without giving away your peace. In that space, the repetition, the steadiness, the refusal to be emotionally hijacked, you find your freedom. And your citadel, once again, holds strong. Number 5. Don't take the bait. Imagine yourself standing by a quiet river. The water is still. The sun glints off the surface. And somewhere just out of sight, a skilled angler casts a line into that calm. A line baited not with worms, but with words. Words designed to provoke, to pull, to hook you emotionally and reel you into a scene you never asked to be part of. That angler is the toxic person. And their bait? A cutting remark, a guilt-laced question, a subtle dig disguised as concern. Their goal is simple: to disrupt your peace, to stir drama, and to feed on your emotional reaction. This is not just an occasional annoyance. For many, it's a pattern. Toxic individuals often thrive on emotional baiting. They create scenarios designed to draw out your anger, your frustration, your defenses. Why? Because once you're hooked, they can control the narrative. They can cast themselves as the victim, the winner, the center of attention. The moment you respond emotionally, they've succeeded. But what if you didn't bite? What if you stood by that river and watched the line fall into the water and simply didn't move? What if you saw the bait for what it was, a ploy, a performance, and chose to remain still? This, right here, is the essence of Stoic indifference. It is not apathy. It is not weakness. It is clarity, power, mastery over your own emotions. The Stoics made this distinction with great care. Apathy to them meant disinterest, a lack of investment in life. That's not what they preached. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic minds, didn't teach people to feel nothing. He taught them to feel the right things at the right times in the right way. Stoic indifference is about disconnecting from the emotions that disturb your reason. The irrational anger, the wounded pride, the reactive need to defend. It's about detaching from the bait before it can take hold. It begins with awareness. You have to be able to spot the bait when it's thrown your way. It might come as a backhanded compliment. "Oh, you're actually pretty good at that for someone like you." Or a manipulative plea. "I guess I just expected more from someone who says they care." In the moment, you'll feel the hook, that rising heat, that urge to snap back, to prove a point. But here's where the Stoic work begins. Instead of reacting, you pause. You observe. You recognize the tactic. That pause is power. You tell yourself, "This is bait. I do not need to take it." You choose detachment, not out of coldness, but out of wisdom. You let the remark hang in the air, unanswered. You let the guilt trip fall flat. You watch the emotional current swirl around you, but you do not step into it. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. The drama loses its grip. Like a fire without oxygen, it begins to fade. You don't fuel it with anger or argument. You don't give it shape with your energy. You simply let it pass. And in doing so, you send a message, not just to them, but to yourself. My peace is not up for negotiation. This isn't about becoming passive or uncaring. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress your humanity. Quite the opposite. It encourages compassion, joy, gratitude. What it teaches is control. Control over what you allow into your emotional space. It reminds you that you are not obligated to respond to every invitation into conflict. You can walk away. You can remain still. You can choose serenity over spectacle. Think of Stoic indifference like armor, not the kind that makes you hard or closed off, but the kind that protects what matters most. Your clarity, your values, your peace. When you practice it, you become less reactive and more reflective. Less of a puppet, more of a presence. The kind of person who doesn't need to fight every battle to prove their strength, because their strength lies in not being baited in the first place. So the next time someone casts their line, with provocation, with guilt, with manipulation, take a breath. Remember the river. Remember the bait. And then simply let it drift by. Because what they want is your reaction. But what you have is far more valuable. Your restraint, your reason, and your refusal to be moved by the storms others try to create. That is Stoic indifference. And it is a power that no toxic person can touch. Number 6. The art of the non-reaction. Imagine stepping into the verbal arena with someone who treats every conversation like a battleground. They wield words like daggers, sharp, fast, and aim to wound. These are the verbal gladiators of modern life. Masters of sarcasm, experts in humiliation, trained in the dark art of provocation. They don't want resolution, they want dominance. And their preferred weapon isn't fists, it's fury. Not logic, but emotional chaos. You've met this person before. Maybe it was in a heated boardroom. Maybe it was at a family dinner. Maybe it's someone close to you who knows just which words to twist, which buttons to push. Their goal? To lure you in, to bait you into reacting, defending, shouting, or crumbling, because the moment you do, they're in control. You're in their emotional arena, and the game has begun. But there is a Stoic strategy, one so simple and yet so powerful that it often gets overlooked. It is not a counterattack. It is not clever retaliation. It is the art of the non-reaction. Yes, silence. When used with intention, silence is not surrender. It is disruption. It is resistance. It is strength so quiet that it robs the verbal gladiator of their stage. It changes the script entirely. They expected a battle, you gave them stillness. They came to spar, you refused to enter the ring. And in that choice, you redefined the power dynamic. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, didn't advocate for passivity. He championed control, not over others, but over the self. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop debating your worth. Stop defending your integrity. Live it, be it, and let your silence speak where words would only give fuel to fire. This kind of quiet isn't easy. We're conditioned to fight back, to defend ourselves, to match insult with clever retort. But the path of the Stoic is not reaction, it's reason. It's the mastery of one's emotional terrain. And sometimes the strongest statement is made not through speech, but through stillness. When a toxic person tries to provoke you with a sharp insult or a cutting remark, picture this. A tennis player standing on the court, ready, focused, swinging their best serve. But across the net, there's no one there. The ball bounces, echoes, and dies. That's what your silence does. It sends their attack into a void. No rally, no game, no satisfaction. And in that emptiness, their power begins to fade. But understand this, when you first use non-reaction, it can trigger escalation. The toxic individual may try harder. They may shout louder, throw harsher words, become more desperate to provoke. This is a test. They are not prepared for peace. They are not accustomed to stillness. So you must remain grounded. This is where your preparation matters. This is where the inner fortress, your citadel, must hold. Silence is not for the weak. It is not for those who are afraid. It is for those who know that a moment's reaction can cost them hours of regret. It is for those who have done the inner work to understand that not every insult deserves a response, and not every battle is worth fighting. This doesn't mean you let people walk over you. This doesn't mean you accept mistreatment. It means you choose your response, and sometimes that response is no response at all. It's the ultimate power move, the refusal to be baited, the decision not to dance to the rhythm of someone else's dysfunction. And perhaps most importantly, silence protects your peace. It builds distance between you and the chaos. It shields your mind from the noise and gives you space to decide, with clarity, what to do next. Because silence doesn't mean inaction. It means intention. It's what happens when you choose not to react in the moment, so that you can respond wisely later on your own terms. In a world that demands constant engagement, where reaction is often mistaken for strength, choosing silence is revolutionary. It is stoic, it is strategic, and it is the quiet that breaks the cycle of toxicity, one moment of stillness at a time. Number 7. Limit your exposure. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in the center of your walled citadel, the stronghold of your mental well-being. The air inside is calm. Your mind is ordered. Your emotions steady. Around you are the high, solid walls you've built with intention. Boundaries rooted in self-respect, guarded by awareness, reinforced by reason. But even the most well-defended fortress faces threats. Intruders don't always come with battering rams. Sometimes they wear familiar faces. They arrive disguised as co-workers, acquaintances, even family members. And no matter how high your walls, they find ways to slip through. This is where Stoic wisdom speaks with sharp clarity. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control your proximity to them. You can't stop the storm, but you can decide whether you step into it. That is the essence of self-mastery. That is the art of distance, a practice of self-care that is neither cruel nor cowardly, but strategic and profoundly wise. The first defense is simple and yet often overlooked. Limit the time you spend with toxic people. If someone consistently drains your energy, undermines your peace, or thrives on conflict, consider how often you grant them access to your space. Do you have to meet them for lunch? Could you reschedule that call? Could you shift your seat at the table, leave the room, shorten the meeting, walk away, not rudely but wisely? This isn't about being antisocial. It's about self-preservation. A Stoic doesn't engage in unnecessary battles. Marcus Aurelius didn't send his legions into skirmishes that served no purpose, and neither should you. There's a quiet kind of strength in refusing to fight a war that doesn't need to be fought. But what if avoidance isn't possible? What if the source of the toxicity is someone you work with every day, or someone you love? What then? That's when emotional distance becomes not just helpful, but essential. Emotional distance isn't about detaching from people. It's about detaching from their chaos. It's about stepping back mentally, even if you must remain present physically. Epictetus taught that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one another. That clarity is your shield. Understand the person, their patterns, their pessimism, but do not absorb it. Do not make it your own. One way to do this is through mental observation without emotional investment. Watch their behavior as you would a storm forming on the horizon, noticeable but not personally threatening. Let them speak. Let them vent. Let them unravel, and let it pass through you like wind through the trees. You are not required to catch every emotion thrown your way. Next, employ cognitive reframing, a technique deeply influenced by Stoic thought. The Stoics believe that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If someone complains relentlessly, don't internalize it. Reframe it. Say to yourself, they are clearly struggling right now. Their words are about them, not me. In doing so, you reclaim your emotional autonomy. You become unshakable. And above all, focus on what uplifts you. Toxic people want you to join their emotional world, but you don't have to accept the invitation. Direct your attention toward the people, passions, and principles that give you life. Spend time with those who replenish you. Devote energy to the things that matter. Let that become your internal refuge. Think of it like this. If your fortress is the mind, then positivity is the moat. It surrounds your citadel, not to keep the world out, but to filter what enters. Not everyone gets to walk across the drawbridge. Not every voice deserves to echo through your halls. You decide who gets in. You decide how close they come. And this isn't selfish. This is sustainable living. This is how you protect what is sacred within you. Your clarity, your peace, your purpose. The Stoics weren't cold. They weren't distant. They were discerning. They knew that life is short and time is precious. They didn't waste either on people or emotions that had no place in their higher pursuit of virtue and wisdom. So if you need to step back, do so without guilt. If you need to say no, do so without apology. You are not weak for walking away from someone who sows confusion, doubt, or despair. You are wise for knowing your limits and for defending the space within your walls. Because in the end, your citadel isn't just a metaphor. It's your mind, your life, your inner world, and no one, not even the most persistent intruder, has the right to occupy it without your permission. Number 8, build your support system. Just for a moment, close your eyes and imagine the entrance to your inner castle, the place where your peace resides, where your emotional clarity stands watch behind walls built from hard-earned boundaries. You've honed the art of non-reaction. You've learned how to limit exposure to toxic influences. You've guarded your gate with discipline and discernment. But even the strongest warrior, even the most fortified citadel, can be overrun without one essential element, a powerful phalanx. In the ancient world, a phalanx was more than just a military formation. It was a symbol of unity, of shared purpose, of strength drawn from connection. And when we step into the Stoic worldview, we see the same principle come to life. The Stoics never believed in isolation. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, all taught that to live well is to live in harmony with others, especially those who reflect the virtues we ourselves strive to embody. This is your Stoic phalanx, the trusted allies who stand beside you in your pursuit of peace, wisdom, and moral clarity. These are the people who lift you up when the weight of toxic energy threatens to drag you down. They are not merely friends or family. They are your reinforcements, your buffer against the world's chaos, your shield wall. Think about what happens when you've just encountered a toxic person, someone who tries to gaslight, manipulate, humiliate, or provoke. Maybe you walk away feeling emotionally drained, questioning yourself, second-guessing your worth. But then you call a friend, someone who knows your heart, someone who reminds you calmly, lovingly, who you are. That one conversation can re-anchor you. That moment of honest reflection is a return to the fortress. This is the first function of the phalanx. It creates a safe space for reflection. You don't have to carry every emotional burden alone. And in fact, you shouldn't. The second way your support system protects you is by counteracting the voice of negativity with the voice of truth. Toxic individuals often try to chip away at your confidence, eroding your sense of self with subtle or overt cruelty. A strong support system pushes back against that. It's a counterweight to emotional distortion. When you forget your strength, they remind you. When your clarity is clouded, they help you see. They believe in you, especially in the moments when you struggle to believe in yourself. And then there's a subtler, deeper gift they offer, the example they set. In the presence of people who embody patience, resilience, generosity, and emotional wisdom, you are constantly invited to rise. The Stoics believed in surrounding yourself with virtuous individuals because virtue is contagious. When you see someone handle conflict with grace or offer kindness where others would choose cruelty, it doesn't just inspire you, it teaches you. Their way becomes your way. Their presence elevates yours. But here's the truth. Strong support systems don't happen by accident. Just like the walls of your inner citadel, they must be built. To construct your phalanx, you must be intentional. Invest your time in people who invest in you. Not just socially, but meaningfully. Listen deeply. Share vulnerably. Cultivate connection not through convenience, but through consistency. Seek out communities that align with your values. That could be a local philosophy group, a nonprofit, an online forum dedicated to personal growth, anywhere people gather around shared ideals. In those spaces, your potential allies are waiting. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation to realize you're not fighting alone. And never forget the strength of gratitude. When someone supports you, reflect that light back to them. Let them know their presence matters. Gratitude is the currency that deepens connection and fortifies trust. When your phalanx knows they are valued, they show up stronger, more often, more fully. So imagine again your inner citadel, the walls, the gate, the peace within. Now picture a circle of people around it, shoulder to shoulder, shields locked in unity. These are the ones who walk with you. They don't just protect your peace, they amplify it. They give you perspective when you need it most, strength when yours is faltering, and hope in the moments when the world feels cold and hostile. Even the most solitary guardian needs reinforcements. Even the most resilient soul needs reminders of their own light. Your Stoic phalanx isn't just a support system, it's a living embodiment of your values. And when you build it, nurture it, and stand within it, you are no longer defending your peace alone. You are part of something stronger, a quiet, steady force that shields what is sacred in you. Number 9. Prioritize self-care. Imagine yourself as a stoic warrior not just on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments after the fight, removing your armor, tending to your wounds, sharpening your mind and spirit as much as your sword. These moments aren't breaks from the fight, they are part of the strategy. In the war against toxicity, recovery is resistance. What if we reimagine self-care not as a retreat, but as tactical preparation? Think of it as fortifying the walls of your citadel with rituals of resilience. Maybe that's not just meditation, but something like journaling your values every morning, crafting a daily doctrine to remind you of what's worth engaging with and what's not. Or consider the idea of Stoic Sabbaths, intentional, sacred periods in your week where you disconnect from draining interactions entirely. No social media, no problematic conversations, just solitude, nature, reflection, art, things that reconnect you with your inner commander. And beyond the personal, what if you curated a council of clarity? A select group of mentors, friends, or even inspiring writers, living or long gone, whose voices you return to when the emotional fog thickens. Imagine turning to Marcus Aurelius, Maya Angelou, or someone in your life who embodies calm, as if consulting generals before making your next move. You could even experiment with micro-rituals of armor repair throughout the day. A deep breath before answering a message, a moment to stretch after a draining meeting, a cup of tea prepared not out of habit, but as a deliberate pause to check in with your spirit. What are the most unexpected forms of self-care that feel stoic to you? For some, it might be practicing calligraphy in silence. For others, boxing. Or perhaps it's rereading Epictetus under the stars, remembering that the vastness above you renders petty insults beneath you. Let's keep building this arsenal. What would your personal version of a stoic war room look like? The physical and mental space where you regroup, strategize, and emerge ready to face another day of keeping the chaos outside the gates. Number 10. Remember, it's not about you. Picture yourself standing under a heavy, looming cloud, dark, oppressive, spilling negativity like rain. It blocks the light, distorts your view, and casts everything beneath it in shadow. That's what it often feels like when you're dealing with toxic people. They carry their storms with them, unresolved wounds, fears, insecurities, and instead of tending to those storms, they project them outward, letting the acid rain fall wherever it may. And if you're not prepared, it can drench you. But in the wisdom of Stoic philosophy lies a remarkable defense, a force that allows you to step out of the storm emotionally, even when you're physically standing in it. That force is prohairesis, the Stoic concept of the rational will. The idea that while you cannot always control what happens around you, you can control how you respond to it. This is not detachment in the sense of coldness, it is clarity. It is presence without entanglement. It is the decision to be the calm eye in the center of someone else's emotional hurricane. The Stoics taught us to become intelligent observers of life, to witness, to understand, and to choose wisely. When a toxic person lashes out, blames, or manipulates, prohairesis allows you to pause, detach, and see their behavior for what it is, a projection, not a reflection. You learn to stand outside the drama and look at it with the cool curiosity of a scientist watching a chemical reaction unfold. You begin to understand, this is not about me. Their sharp words, armor over insecurity. Their anger, a flare of powerlessness. Their bitterness, a symptom of a life out of harmony. And like the ground under that dark cloud, you are not stained by the shadow it casts. You remain grounded, steady, untouched by the turbulence above. This form of Stoic detachment requires practice. It's not a disengagement from humanity, quite the opposite. You can still feel compassion. You can still care, but you refuse to become a casualty of someone else's internal conflict. You stop absorbing what was never yours to carry. That's the wisdom in Epictetus reminder. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. How much of your life has been spent trying to fix someone else's storm? How often have you sacrificed your peace to soothe someone else's rage? Every moment spent entangled in someone's toxic energy is a moment lost on your own growth, your own joy, your own clarity. And so the path forward becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You observe without attachment. You acknowledge without absorbing. You detach without abandoning your values. You become the grounded presence in the face of emotional chaos. If a toxic coworker blames you for something you didn't do, pause. Observe. Ask yourself, is this truly mine to own? If a family member lashes out with criticism meant to wound, take a step back. Consider what pain in them is speaking, and let it pass like thunder in the distance. This doesn't mean you don't set boundaries. You do, but you do it without drama, without the need to win or retaliate. You defend your peace not with weapons, but with wisdom. Because when you practice stoic detachment, you reclaim your time, your clarity, your power. You stop wasting energy trying to fix the storm, and instead focus on building a shelter within yourself, one that no cloud can touch. And when the skies seem heavy, when you feel that old urge to react, to explain, to get pulled in, look up, even metaphorically. Above those clouds, the sun is still shining. It never stopped, and neither should you. Keep walking your path. Keep tending to your mind like the sacred fortress it is. Let others carry their clouds. You carry your calm. Number 11. Don't try to fix them. Imagine standing in a lush, peaceful garden, the result of years of effort, care, and introspection. Every plant, every flower is a part of your inner world, your values, your virtues, your hard-won clarity. But outside the fence, there's another plot, tangled, choked with weeds, overgrown with resentment, blame, and chaos. It belongs to someone you care about, and despite your best efforts, no matter how many weeds you pull, how much sunlight you offer, their garden refuses to bloom. This is the emotional experience of trying to fix a toxic person. The impulse often comes from a place of love or loyalty. You want to heal, to rescue, to show them a better way. But in Stoic philosophy, this noble instinct, if left unchecked, can become your undoing. Stoicism is clear. We are to focus on what lies within our control. And what lies within your control is not another person's growth, not their healing, not their transformation, only your own choices, your own reactions, and the life you choose to build in response to them. Toxic people are not projects. They are individuals with agency. And like all of us, they must one day look inward and choose to confront their pain, their habits, their impact on others. You cannot walk that road for them. And when you try, when you take responsibility for their healing, you don't just burden yourself, you rob them of accountability. In trying to fix them, you may inadvertently help them avoid doing the hard work themselves. This is one of the central paradoxes of helping. You cannot lift someone who refuses to stand. And so, the Stoic response is to return again and again to what is yours to tend, to pull your energy out of their soil and redirect it to your own garden, to focus on what nurtures your spirit. Strong relationships built on mutual respect, daily self-care, quiet reflection, and the consistent practice of virtue. That doesn't mean you abandon compassion. Stoicism isn't cold. It's clear. If you feel compelled to help, do so with gentle encouragement, not force. Share a book that shaped your thinking. Recommend therapy if it feels right. Ask thoughtful questions that might spark their own introspection. Offer a hand, but don't drag them along. And above all, lead by example. When you stay calm in the face of their volatility, when you respond with dignity instead of defensiveness, When you walk your path without veering into their emotional chaos, you become a living invitation to change. You don't preach the Stoic way, you embody it. And in doing so, you show them that peace is possible, not through domination or emotional manipulation, but through inner mastery. Still, there will be times when even your example, even your patience, will not be enough. The person remains committed to their dysfunction. Their garden stays tangled, no matter how brightly yours blooms. In those moments, you must ask a difficult but essential question. Is your presence in their life helping you grow or harming you? There is no virtue in staying where your peace is constantly poisoned. Stoicism teaches that boundaries are not punishments, they are acts of clarity. And sometimes the highest form of compassion is stepping back, releasing the need to fix, and protecting what you've built inside. You are not a therapist. You are not a savior. You are a steward of your own soul. And when you finally stop trying to rescue others from themselves, you reclaim the energy to become who you were meant to be, a grounded, resilient, and free human being, walking the Stoic path not with burden, but with clarity. Let others tend their own soil. Let yours flourish. Number 12. When to walk away. Imagine yourself standing within the silent halls of your Stoic castle, a fortress you've spent months, maybe years, constructing with intention. The stones are laid with self-awareness. The towers are built from boundaries. The gates fortified by emotional detachment. This place is your inner sanctuary, your personal refuge from the chaos of the external world. And yet, even behind these strong walls, you feel it, the steady, relentless pressure of negativity seeping in. A toxic individual, someone close to you perhaps, persists like a siege at your gates. Their words, their moods, their presence, they don't simply irritate, they erode. Like a slow, acidic mist, their energy threatens the clarity, peace, and perspective you've cultivated within. Despite your best efforts, boundaries, detachment, compassion, the storm outside refuses to calm. It is in moments like this that one of the most difficult yet liberating Stoic truths becomes clear. There are times when the most rational, the most virtuous, and the most self-respecting choice is to walk away. This is not about running. It's not avoidance. It's not revenge. It's recognition. Recognition that your peace is sacred, and that no philosophy, no moral code, no loyalty obligates you to remain in the path of prolonged harm. The Stoics, for all their toughness, did not equate endurance with martyrdom. They valued courage, yes, but not at the cost of clarity. Seneca reminds us, the whole future lies in uncertainty, live immediately. And what could be a greater waste of the present than remaining in a relationship or situation that continually steals your joy, narrows your spirit, or clouds your mind? To stay indefinitely in a toxic dynamic, especially when you've tried to communicate, to offer support, to set firm boundaries, is not Stoicism. It's self-sacrifice under the guise of virtue. Walking away, on the other hand, is often the final expression of self-respect. It is an act of alignment, of placing your internal values above external expectations. And most importantly, it is a statement: I will not let what I cannot control destroy what I've worked so hard to protect. Detachment, in this context, is your armor. You are not abandoning the person. You are relinquishing a dynamic that has proven harmful. You are not condemning them, but you are choosing to no longer be collateral damage in a war they have yet to stop waging with themselves. But how you walk away matters. There is no need for fanfare, no need for confrontation unless necessary. A calm exit, a gradual reduction in exposure, these are the quiet strategies of the Stoic. Declining invitations, choosing not to engage, letting a conversation fade instead of trying to resolve what cannot be resolved. This is grace, not avoidance. Wisdom, not coldness. Of course, before you choose to leave, you must be honest with yourself. Have you truly tried? Have you set clear boundaries? Have you offered a path toward repair? Have you observed a pattern, not a one-time wound? And has the presence of this person, whether friend, coworker, or family member, consistently robbed you of peace, drained your energy, and clouded your clarity? If the answer is yes, then the answer is clear. Protecting your inner serenity is not selfish. It is an act of moral clarity. You were never meant to be a sponge for someone else's unprocessed pain. You were never meant to carry the burden of another's unresolved storm. By walking away, with grace, with calm, and with full awareness, you reaffirm your deepest Stoic commitment to live a life ruled by reason, guided by virtue, and sustained by peace. And in the space that is created, the silence after the storm, something powerful happens. The weight lifts, the fog clears, and in that clarity, the garden within your castle grows again, peacefully, quietly, uninterrupted. Number 13. Forgive yourself. Imagine this. You're preparing for a long, winding journey across mountains and deserts, oceans and valleys. On your back is a heavy bag, not filled with tools or provisions, but with something far more burdensome: resentment, fury, unresolved bitterness toward someone who has wronged you, someone toxic who once stood in your life like a storm. With each step, this weight slows you down. It bends your back. It clouds your view. And yet somehow you keep carrying it, perhaps believing that to drop it would mean surrendering. But in the Stoic view, this belief is not strength. It's captivity. The Stoics, masters of internal freedom, taught that forgiveness is not about excusing wrongdoing or denying injustice. It's about liberating yourself from emotional chains that serve no purpose but to keep you tethered to pain. You are not forgiving because they deserve it. You are forgiving because you deserve peace. Marcus Aurelius, who governed both an empire and his own turbulent mind, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the soul of Stoic forgiveness. It's not about controlling the behavior of toxic people. That's their responsibility, their terrain. Your terrain is your inner world. And in that world, you are the architect. When you choose to let go of hatred, you're not letting them off the hook. You're simply stepping out of the story they've been writing with your name in it. You're reclaiming authorship. Resentment, as the Stoics would see it, is a form of self-inflicted suffering. It allows the offender to live in your head rent-free, sometimes long after they've exited your life. It's emotional debt with no payoff. Every time you replay the moment, every time you let it shape your mood or dictate your energy, you're allowing the toxic past to steal from your present. And so forgiveness becomes an act of resistance, an act of power, a decision to unhook yourself from the event and return to what you can control: your response, your focus, your path forward. To practice Stoic forgiveness, start by turning inward. Recognize what you're feeling, no suppression, no shame. Call it what it is: pain, anger, betrayal, regret. Then practice self-compassion. If a dear friend came to you with these feelings, would you shame them for struggling? Or would you offer them space to breathe, to feel, to begin again? Reframing the event can also be powerful. Not to deny what happened, but to view it with greater perspective. Was this person acting from cruelty or from confusion? Were they driven by malice or by their own unresolved wounds? Sometimes understanding doesn't excuse, but it does soften the blade. Forgiveness, then, becomes less of a declaration and more of a process. A quiet choice you make again and again. A refusal to carry a wound as a weapon. A decision to protect your peace at all costs, because peace, once found, is priceless. And when you do finally release that weight, when you set down the bag you've been hauling and feel your spine straighten, your breath deepen, you realize it was never about them. It was always about you, your strength, your clarity, your freedom. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not a performance. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't demand a confrontation or a dramatic goodbye. It's a silent, internal release. A moment where you say, "This no longer belongs to me." And then you walk on lighter than before. Because this journey you're on, toward inner peace, toward virtue, toward a life of meaning, is too long, too sacred, and too beautiful to carry someone else's darkness on your back. Summary: you have the power to transform from a passive victim caught in the storm of someone else's chaos into a resilient warrior who protects their peace with wisdom, courage, and clarity. The Stoics didn't teach us to fight fire with fire. They taught us to master ourselves, to rise above what we can't control, and to walk through the world untouched by its poisons. There are 13 Stoic-inspired methods to help you shift from reaction to resilience, from survival to serenity. Number 1. Identifying and understanding the toxic threat. Before you can defend your peace, you must recognize what threatens it. Learn to identify the signs of toxic behavior: manipulation, chronic negativity, guilt-tripping, passive aggression. Awareness is your first shield. Number 2. Fortify your walls. Set firm emotional and physical boundaries. Your inner citadel must be guarded. Not everyone deserves access to your time, attention, or energy. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. Number 3. Become uninteresting to the emotional barbarian. Drama seekers thrive on reaction. When you stop feeding their chaos, they lose interest. Use the gray rock method. Be calm, neutral, and unrewarding to their attempts at provocation. Number 4. The broken record technique. When pressured, manipulated, or pushed, repeat your stance calmly and consistently. Like a stone wall repelling wave after wave, your strength lies in your refusal to be moved. Number 5. Don't take the bait. Toxic people dangle emotional lures, insults, guilt, shame. See them for what they are. Respond with perspective, not emotion. Detachment here is not distance from reality, it's mastery of it. Number 6. The art of the non-reaction. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Not to ignore, but to protect. Non-reaction breaks the rhythm of conflict and shows that your peace is not up for negotiation. Number 7. Limit your exposure. You can't always remove toxic people from your life entirely, but you can limit their influence. Choose when, how, and how often you engage. Your time is a resource. Guard it wisely. Number 8. Build your support system. No warrior stands alone. Surround yourself with people who reflect your values, those who uplift, not drain you. A stoic phalanx of trusted allies can protect your peace when you falter. Number 9. Prioritize self-care. Self-care is not a reward, it's armor. Sleep, nutrition, time in nature, mindfulness, joyful activity. These are how you restore your strength. The battle may be emotional, but your body carries it all. Number 10. Remember, it's not about you. Toxic behavior is a mirror of internal chaos. Don't internalize someone else's pain. Their projections say more about their wounds than your worth. Your identity is not defined by their dysfunction. Number 11. Don't try to fix them. Healing is not your job unless you're asked and qualified. You can offer compassion without becoming a savior. They must walk their own path. Your job is to stay on yours. Number 12. Know when to walk away. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave. When the situation becomes corrosive to your spirit, stepping away is not abandonment, it's self-preservation. You're not giving up on them, you're choosing you. Number 13. Forgive yourself. You may have stayed too long, reacted too much, lost your way at times. Forgive yourself. Every step forward is a return to who you truly are. You don't have to carry the weight forever. And always remember, a life free of unnecessary negativity is a life worth fighting for. You are not helpless. You are not broken. With every boundary set, every deep breath taken, every silent exit made, you reclaim your peace. You reclaim your power. And you walk the stoic path with quiet strength and unshakable resolve. So now the question is, Will you carry that weight another mile, or will you finally set it down? You have the tools, the mindset, the power. You don't have to be ruled by someone else's chaos. You can be the guardian of your own peace, calm, steady, and unshakable. If this video sparked something in you, if you're ready to step into that strength and leave the toxicity behind, then take the next step. Drop a comment below. Let us know which of these 13 Stoic tools spoke to you the most. Or maybe you've got your own method that's helped you rise above negativity. Share it. You never know who it might help. If you found this video valuable, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Someone who's carrying that same emotional weight, wondering if they're strong enough to let go. Spoiler alert, they are. And hey, if you're on your own journey toward inner peace and want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Join this growing community of thinkers, warriors, and seekers who are choosing clarity over chaos. Because in the end, peace isn't found, it's built. One decision at a time. And you are the builder. See you in the next one. Stay grounded. Stay powerful. Stay stoic.